Welcome back to the World of Martial Arts podcast. I am Kurt with Mick Kelley and Nathan Leverton as per usual. Mick and I just wrapped up a really unique and exciting opportunity to sit and have a conversation, albeit via Zoom, with none other than the great Sean Patrick Flanery, who as an actor, I'm sure you've seen on such things as Young Indiana Jones Chronicles, Powder, Boondock Saints, Dexter, and everything in between. And he's got a new film coming out that really is a celebration of his, what did he say, 21 plus years that he's been involved in Brazilian Jiu Jitsu. It's called Born a Champion, and it is a great film. It's a long watch, but it's worth it. A great film that has the kind of heart that we see from a movie like Rocky, but it's set through that BJJ filter. It's very much a celebration of an art that he loves, told through the lens of really a father and kind of a well-rounded person. And it's his journey through martial arts and some of his stories put into screen with these fictional characters. Mick, what was your take on Sean? I know I loved the interview, and it seemed like you did as well.
Oh, loved it. Yeah. He just came over as super well balanced and authentic. And as I said before, there's not many authentic guys in martial arts, and, well, life or martial arts, right? But It was just the way he came over. He didn't fake any of that. Just his whole take on Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, the combative nature of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, the fact that he was really, really espousing the virtues of the honor, the integrity, everything that comes with martial arts, which the way that he came across. Yeah, I have no doubts whatsoever that, you know, if you took your kids to him, like, they would be able to go nomina patria filia spiritus sancti, right, and then Kimura them. And if you haven't watched
and shepherds we shall be for thee, my lord,
that was lost on you.
Right.
But yeah, he was just a very, very cool guy, very, very cerebral.
Yeah, I didn't expect him to be as erudite as he was. You know what I mean? He really, I mean, knew he'd be like kind of a grounded guy, but I don't know, to be honest, I expected a little more LA, and instead he was just every bit, you know, just a well-rounded guy, and who had a lot of really not just great insights into martial art, but you can see his passion for this art. He's been in martial art, and you listen to the interview and hear for yourself, but he's been involved since he was about 9 years old. His father was a Golden Gloves fighter, and so he came up around this, and you can hear that in the way that he talks about it. He's not somebody who, I don't know, found his way to martial art as a hobby to decompress after being on set or something, which is completely valid. But no, this is a martial artist who happens to act in some movies sometimes, as opposed to the other way around.
Oh yeah, he truly, you can tell he lives the life.
Right.
He was so non-LA. I was expecting it because it was like Hollywood BJJ, and I was like, right, you're gonna have to give me a minute, guys, because my soy latte is getting cold here, and I've got power yoga at 2, you know, all of that. Oh, wait a minute, let me just charge up my Segway, you know, stuff like that.
We all know you have an appointment to bleach certain parts of your body as required.
Oh yeah, right. All that. And of course, he just so wasn't. It was like the bit where he was saying about you can have a legacy, or you can leave a legacy to your children, or you can leave money. You can't necessarily leave both, not very often. And then it was like, you know, what do I want to leave my child? And the one thing he said was, you know, do I want to leave them the ability to be able to buy this big car? And then he went, well, perhaps maybe, you know, leave them a legacy that they don't really need to buy the big car. And as a father of 3 boys, I listened to that, and I was thinking to myself, that is cool shit, man. That's exactly, you know, that it's that quiet confidence that, you know, a father should give his son anyway, but a teacher should give their students. And I'm listening to guys. I've watched quite a few of his breakdowns, by the way, and I'd heard before that he had an old school jiu-jitsu game. If you go on YouTube, you'll see. But I swear to God, every single thing that he's got is, you know, trust me, there's no berimbolos, there's no going upside down. But I'll tell you something, outside of a chip shop, man, I'll tell you, you want to be going down the Sean Patrick Flanery route. You know what I mean?
Well, and that comes through in the film really well. He obviously his relationship with his son in the film which is played by 2 different actors because it's different ages, and they're his sons in real life. So that comes across on the screen rather beautifully, as well as his take on jiu-jitsu. Nathan, you're our resident film expert, and you've got countless more examples of grappling background and all these different things than I do. What was your take on the film? It's a 3-hour watch. Did you enjoy it?
Yeah, I'm pretty jealous about this interview. It reminds me, when you talk about him, he sounds like all those old school jiu-jitsu guys like John Will, like Chris Houter, those interesting guys who have a lot to say, you know, off the mat as well as on the mat. And I enjoyed the film. We've been waiting, what, 25 years for the jiu-jitsu film. We had Red Belt, which was kind of okay. We had the film Jiu-Jitsu with Nicolas Cage that had no jiu-jitsu in.
Instant classic.
well, Nathan, I should actually warn you. Red Belt, you know, it was like my early jiu-jitsu career. It showed early promise, fizzled out rather quickly, and left me with a bit of disappointment. You know what I mean? But yeah, you're totally right. You know, like the world's been waiting. The world's been waiting for a BJJ movie, as we
well, it's kind of worked backwards,
right?
I guess. I mean, you get, you know, Enter the Dragon, and then everyone does Kung Fu, and you do Karate Kid, and everyone does karate, and you do Rocky, and everyone does boxing, and then we all did jiu-jitsu without the movie, and now the movie comes in afterwards, 25 years late. But hopefully now
UFC 1 was the movie, I guess.
Yeah, that's the thing. We had the actual sport, the real thing. Hopefully this film now will bring people in. Hopefully this will get people in. This will be the gateway drug for people to start jiu-jitsu. There is not a lot of jiu-jitsu in it. There's a lot of love story. There's a lot of other stuff going on. But the thing that worries me a little bit is jiu-jitsu's not that cinematic. And it's shot in quite a realistic way in these long takes, you know, with like wide shots to show the jiu-jitsu. And to people who do jiu-jitsu, that's great, because we're like, oh my God, he just rolled into that armbar and did this and did that. But you know, people watch boxing fights, people watch Thai boxing fights, people don't really watch jiu-jitsu matches because it's not that great to watch unless you know what's going on. It's the, you know, it's the reason people boo when they go to the ground in the UFC. Like, people aren't that into it. So I don't know how much that will cross over, but he talked about in the film a lot of the philosophy. It was that love letter to jiu-jitsu. He talked about what jiu-jitsu means to him and what it's done for him. And, you know, you can tell, as well as being this fan film about jiu-jitsu, it's also a very personal film about him and his journey as well. And hopefully that side of it will get people into it, because I'm not sure seeing the jiu-jitsu will actually do it, because I don't know how that plays to non-grapplers.
I agree. That was kind of, we actually mentioned a little bit about that in the chat with him, because the way I would say it is like the what of the jiu-jitsu that we see in the movie is for people like us.
Yeah.
Right. People who are accustomed to watching it. So what they're doing on the mat is for us. The why they're doing it is for the uninitiated, right? It is for the person who hasn't done it yet. And that's not uncommon. I mean, I guess when we watch Rocky, mostly we just like to see him keep getting beat up and getting back up off the mat. But if there wasn't that story behind it, you know, I don't know, are we really going to like it? And that was his take on it, was that he wanted it to be a story with BJJ as the vehicle for the story. So hopefully it works, because it does seem intentional.
I mean, the difference I would say between things like Rocky and this in many ways is, you know, the thing with the Kung Fu movies and the boxing movies is the training scenes. And this doesn't have that.
Yeah, it's brief.
This doesn't have this has fights. This is more like a blood sport. In fact, it rips off the end of blood sport where he can't see in the fight. But still,
yes.
You know, but like
yes.
It takes,
we'll talk influences in a minute. I'm curious.
Yeah, well, it takes more the tournament route and then spreads that tournament out throughout a long film with a lot of other stuff in between it. But it doesn't have that. It doesn't have those training montages. It doesn't have those training scenes, which is, I mean, it does a tiny bit, but not. Like, it's usually the focus of a lot of films. And I found that a little strange in the love letter to it. But again, I don't think jiu-jitsu is that cinematic. So maybe that's the reason.
It reminded me a little bit of, is it The Warrior with, with the brothers with, Tom Hardy. Tom Hardy, right? It kind of reminded me of that movie in a lot of ways. There's a veteran component to it. Secretly, this guy who did a heroic, et cetera, et cetera. But, and I don't want to spoil anything, but there was elements to it reminding me of that. And I feel the same way about that movie. There's some like, oh, he's going to knock this guy out his first day in this gym in The Warrior, or whatever that film was called. But there's not a lot of montage stuff. And for that matter, is there a lot of montage anymore, period?
Yeah, I think it is definitely something of the 80s, but that tone shift that you're talking about, I mean, you know, as well as Warrior, like The Wrestler and films like that, is that slightly somber. It's about loss as well, and
more in that
realistic
category.
Stuff, some family stuff. Yeah, I never really noticed, but it does seem to be kind of a different trend in these kind of movies.
Right, more heart.
I quite liked it, because I would have been absolutely raging if a power ballad you know, had knocked in halfway through, because I'm a fanboy. So, you know, the thing is, I love jiu-jitsu, love movies, love the Boondock Saints, loved Powder. So it was pretty much love Dexter. So that was, yeah, he would have had to do something really bad anyway. There was a lot in this movie, and there was a lot of stuff that was thrown in it. Some of it stuck, some of it didn't. Me, I liked all of it, but there was bits of it where I was like, I'd like to see the director cut of this.
Mm-hmm.
Dennis Quaid, when he did the Darth Vader choke on that dude, man, like I was like, yeah, man, we need more of this guy. But I really, like I said, I really enjoyed it. Yeah, it's what it is. You know, it's not going to be Citizen Kane and McGee, but it's a great movie.
I mean, there's a lot to talk about in the film. We were sending messages back and forth. You know, it is, you know, we've talked before about 80s action movies being like, you know, like a male power fantasy of the guy get the girl and beat up the guys, and one man can make a difference. And those kind of things dropped off. This kind of does that still again. Like the character, I mean, the character is the most American character of all time. He is literally, he's military, God, family, like, you know, it's just, and then the girl he meets, like, that's one bit that did throw me out a bit, when she literally sits down and says, oh yeah, I'm a model and a lawyer, but I just want to be a housewife. I was like, what is she going to say? Like, her dad owns a brewery and she hates foreplay. Like, what was going to be the next thing that she said? I was like, it is ridiculous, but the films that we grew up on were ridiculous. You know, they were silly. But then this film also tries to ground itself. It is actually in some ways a history of jiu-jitsu, and it has real people in it, like Renzo Gracie, and he is Renzo Gracie in it. And it has footage of John McCain talking about MMA and the trials. And so it actually has real stuff in it. So when it would ground itself, almost like it's, and it starts off like a documentary. He's interviewing one of the characters like it's a documentary. And it feels kind of real, and then it does all the kind of 80s action stuff of one man can make a difference. That pulled apart the film a little bit for me in places, but overall it's a jiu-jitsu movie, so I really enjoyed it.
Yeah,
you know, you can say about how, you know, it's cliched in places. I don't think so, but then again, I'm a bit of a cliched guy. Like, you know, I don't want to watch something and think it's like a reality TV show. Right. I want to look at it. And again, it's like, you know, like Nathan said, he had the lot, man. You know, he was a Marine. He said his prayers. Like, man, he came out to Randy Couture's down and as soon as I hear Hendrix playing Star Spangled Banner, man, I'm like that. I forget about being an Irish Republican for a minute. I'm straight back in this, right? But I really, like, I reckon, truly, I think it's a proper timely movie. And it was like, counter to what Nathan was saying, I actually think the fact that the jiu-jitsu isn't that cinematic will be great, because I'll tell you now, as a 52-year-old guy on the mat, the last thing I need is another dude who's watched John Wick trying to pull that shit on me, because they come in and it's like, right, this is what you're going to get. I'm going to jump on your back. I'm going to hide your hands, which, like, do you remember being able to say that, Nathan, back in the day? It was like, take away his base. Why? Hide his hands so he can't tap. And they go, but he can say tap. And you go, not if I smother his face. And like, just all of that is like, yeah, man, bring me back. Like, I loved it.
My game is a 1990s game. Seeing the jiu-jitsu in this made me, like, want to take it down and show the guys at the gym who are doing their barambolos and inverting all the time and dropping back for footlocks. I want to show them this and go, no, this is what we grew up on. This is it. And when Sherdog forums come up and videos take ages to load, although that's probably the one inaccurate thing about the 90s, how quickly those videos were loading. But it feels like almost a film that's in the wrong time, but I really, really enjoyed it. And it was like it was made for us as well. Like, no matter how cheesy it is, and it is really, really cheesy, I really, really liked it. And it felt like a film for us by one of us. And you know, and sometimes that's all you need, and that means a lot. Exactly that.
It was like you know, a love letter to BJJ. A love letter to guys over 40 who do BJJ. It had everything. I like the ethos behind it. Like, you know, if you try to get too precious about something, then you lose it. I really, like, as I said, I can't gush enough about it because it was just what we need. It is exactly what it says on the tin. It is a good movie as far as I'm concerned.
One quick question for you guys. So a lot of the film is based around that the fight early on that his opponent cheats.
Yeah.
Did he cheat?
No.
No, he didn't cheat.
Yeah.
He was just being a scumbag.
They keep saying he cheated, and it's like,
cheating
nope.
from like a, you know, like a unspoken rule of the like ethics of the mat kind of thing. You know what I mean? If we're calling it that, but yeah, it didn't seem like it was.
What you got to remember is I was watching it, and first of all, I saw a Lucha Libre t-shirt, and every time I see one of them, I'm always wary of those characters, right?
Well,
and he came out.
guy writing is going to make Lucha Libre the bad guy, right? If it's the 90s.
Right. Yeah, always, man. I'll tell you what, that is, whatever way you look at it, man. The ghost of Helio is a vengeful ghost, I'll tell you. Right? He's a vengeful ghost. I'll tell you something, as I said to Nathan, the one thing you've got to admit is Machete has never looked so good, has he? What's he got? Hey, I'll tell you
Danny
something.
Trejo.
That Botox is working. Yeah, Danny Trejo, man.
Yeah,
Danny's
well, and
never
that's just
looked so good.
You know, I was thinking of that character earlier, whose name in the movie is Taco, which they address as a joke. But
Yes.
but I thought the cast was great. I thought everybody held up their end of it really well.
I thought that guy was really good. He didn't have a lot to do, but he was great. I mean, he pretty much, doesn't he? And closes it.
Yeah, and like even his character not only did like his character on the page not have a lot to do, but literally the person that he's portraying in their universe didn't have a lot going on. You know, he mostly was like a support system for them and was content to do that. But it just worked. I thought he did such a good job at otherwise maybe seeming one-dimensional. And even, you know, the woman that played his wife, as you said, she had this sort of, you know, what they used to call manic pixie dream girl. It's just sort of like a female character that's just there as a prop in support of the male lead. She wasn't that vacant or anything, but she didn't have a heavy punch to her as a character, but she still brought everything she had to it. So I really like it. Was the gentleman that winds up being he's the coach of the or the manager rather of the guy he's fighting against? What's his name? Is that Dennis?
Dennis Quaid.
Dennis Quaid. Awesome.
Yeah,
didn't expect to see a Dennis Quaid cameo. So my take on this, and I guess I'm curious to, as we're getting late on time here, I'm curious to get your feedback from everyone, what your rating is, and then what's our rating metric for this movie. Because I thought, despite the fact that maybe there was some lulls, it's a 3-hour watch, it's a long movie, and so I feel like it's pretty consistent. There's a couple dips, but what it lacked in training montage or exciting fight scenes that are overabundant, I felt like that was intentional in the sense that it was about it's a love letter about jujitsu or to jujitsu, as opposed to a love letter to action films, right? A love letter to martial art movies, that kind of thing, where it's just not towing that line. It's reminiscent of certain ones, but it's not trying to stick to that format because it's not about that. It's more, I think, better suited to the people that are already initiated to the art. Mick, what's your kind of final verdict on it, and how do you rate it? You came up with our dildo nunchucks. You need to come up with our one for this. How many eyeballs?
No. There's only one way out of this.
What's the belt? What belt are you giving this?
I'm not giving it belts. I'm giving it rear naked chokes, man.
Okay,
because as Royce Gracie once said, a belt will only cover 2 inches of your ass. You got to cover the rest. I'm going to give this, believe it or not, out of 5. I'm going to give this 4.5. Well, I'm going to give it 4 rear naked chokes, and I'm going to give it a footlock because it's just got a little bit of a nod to nowadays, but we're back old school, man. If somebody said to me, you know, recommendations, would you go for it? And I'm like, yeah. Like, you got to remember, Red Belt Travesty and David Mamet directed that. You know, give you an idea. Mamet is he's the man normally, right?
And Dennis Asano's in that one.
Yeah. But you know, how about this for the worst casting ever? John Machado, the nicest guy in the world, as the baddie. Weren't going to happen. So I'm going to go 4.5 rear naked chokes on this because I'd recommend this to everyone. And not only that, it's literally like a go-to list to explain everything about jiu-jitsu. Is it like karate? No, it isn't. You know, all of that, you know, the truth is on the mat, the meritocracy, everything. And it all sounds dead cliched, but guess what? It ain't. Whatever way you look at it, the movie's got heart and soul in it. But the good bits that I really liked, I really, really liked. And the bits that I didn't think they were that, you know, that I couldn't see why they were in there, I still enjoyed them. They were good. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. 4.5 rear naked chokes, man.
How about you, Nathan?
Yeah, 4 tight rear naked chokes. It's the film we've been waiting for. It's the film we're going to be recommending to people to find out about jiu-jitsu. In some ways, it is a very personal film to him, so I think it might not hit home with some other people, you know, because just you know, it's about very much his philosophy. But overall, I think it's a great film. I think it's, you know, it goes straight into that canon of martial arts movies that are the ones we recommend to people to tell them about what we do. Yeah, it's a great film. Really, really enjoyed it.
Awesome. Yeah, same with me. I would say if you are a martial artist or, you know, a jiu-jitsu practitioner, I'm going to go 5. I'm going to give it 5 RNCs out of 5. I think it's maybe not perfect, but there's just nothing else like it out there. And then if you're not already a martial artist, but you like a good film with a good story that uses something interesting as a vehicle to tell the story, then yeah, 4.5 out of 5. And it just might convert you by the end of it. Just might.